Hi there. I am here with Renate Müller, and I am so excited to have you as my guest. So let us just jump straight in. I have been dying to hear more about your story. So if you would like to start out by telling us about your sort of main sensitivity or what you identify with the most or the strongest.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks so much, first of all, for being in this podcast here today. So also a little bit about me. I'm a spiritual empowerment coach, and I'm helping highly sensitive women to reclaim their voice, to find their voice, to speak their truth, and to become more visible online, and to use their voice kind of for something better in this world, I would say, or for impacting more lives. And I'm helping them to actually start their own podcast.
Oh, so that's perfect.
I'm also a podcast mentor. That is really funny. And one of my main sensitivities are, so oh gosh, there's so many. But if I would say that really one of the main one is that I'm taking on other people's emotions and feelings and think they're my own emotions. So it was really hard for me to set boundaries with people because I thought, oh, I am like them. And whatever they say, I kind of have to follow their words, their rules. So it was really hard for me to always, kind of distinguish between me and them, and to really find my own inner truth and my own inner wisdom.
Yeah.
And also I'm a Gemini as a star sign.
All right.
So I adapt myself to the other person really easily. So it was just so interesting when I found out that I'm really sensitive, that I adapt myself to my environment and I take on other people's emotions. So
I find that so interesting that sometimes some of those big things for us, they show up, for instance, in our star sign as well, that it's like we get the clue from more than one place sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And if you're also into human design, maybe you know human design.
I've come across it, but I never sort of got into the whole the categories and what they mean. But let's hear it.
Yeah, it's like there's so many categories in human design, but I'm a manifesting generator, and one of my kind of challenges in life is that especially my solar plexus is kind of out of alignment a lot of times. And this is kind of your own power center, but you also take on other people's emotions. And when I read my chart, I was like, oh wow, that just really described me. And that was so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how sometimes we when we find those clues and it makes so much sense. Was that how you came across the highly sensitivity parts of yourself as well? Was that through the human design, or was that a separate sort of expedition?
Actually, I think it was through a podcast episode. So I was working as a flight attendant about 3 years ago.
All right.
And I was listening to this podcast. It was about, self-empowerment, but also about spirituality. And then they talked about highly sensitive people. And I just resonated with that episode. I never really heard about highly sensitive people before. And I was so surprised. And I was just like, oh my God, there is actually, someone describing what I am in a way. So I always thought there's something wrong with me. Yeah.
So how was it like working as a flight attendant when you feel people and their emotions so closely?
Ooh, it was, oh my God, it was so hard. It was one of the biggest challenges in my life, I would say, because when you're up in an airplane so high above the ground, and you know, the
people are close, aren't they?
Yeah, and the whole plane, it was like, it was scary because I was on this long distance flight, and I actually thought I won't come out of there alive. I thought I will be in this plane forever.
Oh
And
God, yeah.
it was horrible for me. And the thing is that I thought, oh, it's kind of normal to feel this way, or I thought, I don't know if other people feel that way. I just felt like, God, I was just in this fight and flight mode, literally.
Yeah,
Up in
okay.
the air.
What made you feel drawn to that line of work in the first place?
I think the traveling. So I love traveling.
Yeah.
I've been always a traveler in my life. So after my A levels, I went to New Zealand for a whole year. I did work and travel then. And then I did another 6 months of Europe. And then I actually wanted to study social work.
Yeah.
But no university in Germany accepted me. So then I kind of had to come up with a plan of, okay, what should I do with my life now?
Yeah.
And then some of my friends were suggesting me, what about flight attendant? You love traveling.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's such a good idea. So I applied for a lot of flight companies. And then I got accepted in one. And, of course, at first I was like super happy. And I was like, oh my God, I just love traveling so much. And I thought that's kind of the answer for me.
Yeah, it looks perfect, doesn't it?
Yes, it's like perfect on the outside. But I have to say I struggled so much because of my high sensitivities and just taking on, the outer world and not really differentiating myself from the people and their emotions and the energies around me. Yeah.
Did you find anything that helped you cope with it, or was it just survival?
So I think meditation always helped me. So back then I was already meditating, and I was kind of trying to be super, super conscious while I was working and reminding myself I will get out there alive. I'm safe. I'm okay. And, sometimes we had breaks and I just, I put on some music or some brain waves, and that really helped me to calm down. So that helped me during that time, but also, when I was in my hotel room, I was just, sleeping and so happy being by myself. And I did some yoga and, just like looking inward again and like kind of energizing myself again. So, yeah.
All right. It must have been an intense experience.
Absolutely. And I think it was, it was really challenging. I wouldn't say that I kind of mastered it, during the time to hold my energy in or to keep my boundaries in. I think the best decision that I could actually make was back then to quit this job, because I just realized it was just burning me out. I literally came almost to a burnout. I came back home from a long distance flight. I think it was beginning of 2018. I just came back home and I bursted out in tears, and I said to my partner, I just can't do this anymore. I think for a whole year, I was telling myself, I can't do this job anymore. I can't do this anymore. But I was never brave enough to really take action to quit this job. I was just like, I know, it's not
but it's so perfect. I get to travel and I get paid, and
exactly.
we can tell ourselves all kinds of stories, right? When something ought to be right, but at the end of the day, it has to feel right as well. So so you listened to that and you took action. So how did this sensitivity about sensing people, how did it shape your life, and how did it lead you to do what you do today? You talk about your work with empowering women and helping them to find their voice. Is there a red thread in there somewhere?
Yeah, so I think, it was, healing myself first, and really, using my sensitivity, or turning my sensitivity into like a superpower, or into like a strength.
Yeah.
And really using it in a way that serves me, instead of trying to, be the good girl, trying to serve everyone and to be a people pleaser, because I tend to be always such a people pleaser, and, being the good girl, and because you can just feel the other person and you kind of want to make it right.
Yes.
So it's just so, it was so hard for me. But I think, one of the first steps, I think, when you just realize you are really sensitive to these energies around you, is to be just really aware in the situations, and maybe also the people around you who trigger the sensitivity in you. Because sometimes when I was with certain kind of people in my life, they kind of crossed my boundaries, and I just couldn't stand up for myself. I couldn't really use my voice because I was so afraid of their judgment. I was so afraid of, they raising their voice against me.
Yeah.
So it was so much inner healing work, in kind of, tidying up my inner life, my inner universe, and recognizing that I've been through so much pain in my past, and that all these traumas are still stored within me, all these limiting beliefs are still within me. And once I kind of heal these stories that I always told myself my whole life, I can actually see myself suddenly as a person who can take responsibility and can kind of reclaim their own story, and can turn their traumatic story into a tale of a hero.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. That's so powerful. I love that. So there was the awareness, and then the healing, and some kind of figuring out what's me and what's them, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that came really clear when one of my ex-partners, I split up with him last year. And that was one of the biggest heartbreaks in my life. We were together for 5 years, and I thought I'm going to spend my whole life with him. Yeah. But I found, our relationship was actually really, really toxic, and he had really, really narcissistic behaviors. And I think as a really sensitive person, you sometimes attract these people into your life.
I hear that. Yeah, I hear that quite often, actually.
Yeah, and it's, I think it's just something that you can be aware of. But also once you notice, okay, there is this toxic person in my life, I just made a decision, okay, I just have to break all the ties with that person, because it's not serving me anymore. And by that, I was respecting my own boundaries again. And I was also learning about, in general, communication, boundaries, speaking up for myself and my own needs. Because, so many times I think as a woman, we're just pushing down all our needs. We're not speaking our truth, right?
No. We're so busy putting other people first and making sure everybody feels good and that everything is harmonious and working out. So, I recognize some of that as well. I must admit. I think most of us do, don't we? So that sounds like a tough experience and a hard breakup. But where would you have been without that? I mean, I'm sorry, but to me, it seems like it might be something that would, in sort of the long run, really help you shape who you are and your mission, maybe even.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. I think, this whole experience, it has shaped me. It has shaped my whole life, because now I
Mm,
feel like I found my purpose
yeah,
in helping women to speak up for themselves, to reclaim their voices, because it's one of our most powerful tools that we have.
yeah,
And when we reclaim this power within us, our own personal power, and we use our voice for, something we stand for, and we express
mm,
our own truth, I really think that, we can impact this
yeah,
world in a really positive way, and can, it's like a ripple effect. I think the more women standing
absolutely.
up for
Mm,
themselves, speaking up, speaking their truth, reclaiming their voice, you're actually inspiring others to speak up for themselves too. So it's not just, you're not just doing it for you. I
mm,
always feel like there's always
yeah.
an us, between you and me, there's always an us. And it's like something bigger, like a mission, a vision, which
Oh,
kind of carries you along your own
mm,
journey.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I really like that idea that between you and me there's an us. I like
Mhm.
that. That was really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I like that. And I think that for sensitive people, that's important, isn't it? That and I think you said something else as well that I really like. There's been so many good things that I can't keep track of all of them, so I gotta listen to this again. But I think you talked about the pain and the things we go through and the rough times and stuff, and I think in a way they help us um, to when we find our voice and our power, it sort of keeps us human or humble or still vulnerable. It keeps us real in a way, I think. So there, at least I have looked out into the world and seen people who seem to sort of naturally have that power and standing up for themselves. But I think it gives an extra dimension if we come to that place through that inner work and the experiences and looking at ourselves and the world and the interactions and all that. So that was really a clear and gorgeous way to explain it. So thank you
Oh,
so
thank you
much for
so much.
that.
That's okay. I'm so glad you resonate with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Mm.
think that's the best part about realizing that you're sensitive. That's finding other people, and suddenly you're no longer the only weirdo in the world. You're no longer alone,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you're not alone. And I think it's
Yeah.
what we sometimes think, that we're just alone with this
Mm-hmm.
high sensitivity, and no one really understands us. So I had this really big issue in my life. I just felt alone my whole
Yeah.
life. I thought no one can really understand me, my
Mm.
partnerships, my friendships. I thought I'm kind of a loner, and I'm a,
Yep. Yep.
kind of fighter, and I'm, I just do everything by myself. But I think,
Yeah.
especially since last year, I realized that there's so many people out there who
Mm.
are actually the same. And I think
Yeah.
once you speak about your own story and
Mm-hmm.
express yourself, so
Yeah.
many people can resonate with that. And they say, oh my gosh, I experienced similar things. And
Yeah.
then you're not really alone anymore, because you're in the boat together,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Mm.
There's so much power in that alone, I find. And I
Mm.
think especially because the world is sort of run by the non-sensitives, or they're louder, or they sort of take up more space, or they're better at expressing themselves from the start. So even though they are, I guess, the majority, but I think there's becoming more and more of us, or more and more people acknowledging or realizing their sensitivities, but the world still looks kind of not very sensitive friendly in a way. So it's easy to feel alone. But I think, again, the more we stand up and be ourselves and speak our truth, as you say, that that gives hope for someone else who might not have come across the term highly sensitive person or whatever, but they still resonate. So as you said, it's a ripple effect. So yeah.
I think once you kind of activate this Wonder Woman power, I always
I love that term.
I love Wonder Woman. I love superhero movies in general.
Yes.
I think, since I was a child, I was like so in love with fantasy books and superhero movies because they kind of represented this power, like, this hero story. I just loved the hero stories, because they went through all these dark valleys, but then they activated their superpowers. And, I think sometimes as a highly sensitive person, it's kind of like that too. You kind of turning your high sensitivities because at first you're like, oh no, they're kind of against me, or life is happening against me. But once you realize, you can actually use that in a really, really powerful way, and then you kind of turn it around so it's working for you, right? Yeah,
it's just the best. That's just the best part of it, when you get to that and realize, no, this might have been my biggest challenge, but it's not actually a flaw. It's actually amazing. And being the hero, you don't just figure things out for yourself. I think there's always that doing something for others or paying it forward, or something that when we come through those dark days, we learn something, we find something that we can then sort of turn around and give back. So how do you see your work, or make a change in the world, or how would you like to see the world changed to become a better place? What would be the most important thing to you?
I think I would like to see a world where, women are really owning their voice and, standing up for themselves, as I mentioned before, really speaking their truth, but, really what's on their heart, and they're not really afraid to show their raw, truest self. I think what we really need in this world nowadays are just raw humans who just they're okay with being vulnerable. They're okay with sharing their story. They're okay with sharing their wisdom with the world. I don't think we need these perfect people anymore, because they actually don't exist.
No.
And we don't really need this paradigm of women hurting other women, because just because the other woman looks better than us or has something better to say. I want to believe in a world where women should stand to shoulder, shoulder to shoulder, I mean. And, we walk together, and not, we're not fighting against each other. We're more together, hand in hand, and we're creating a new paradigm, a new world, a new, like a new feminine leadership where it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say something which might trigger other people, but it might actually help them in some sort of way too. So you're not really afraid of holding yourself back anymore. So I think it's something that I'm really, really passionate about, that everyone is kind of like reclaiming their own inner Wonder Woman, and their own power, and realizing, well, I am the creator of my own life, and I can actually decide how my life looks like. And they're so much more powerful than they think, and they have so much more control than they think.
Oh, I love that. And again, you said something that really resonates with me, about not being afraid to trigger people. I think we have this sort of, I think a lot of people are scared of sort of the darkness or the badness or the wrongness. And I think maybe that's one of our biggest gifts, that because we have been through all that, we have worked through all that, we're not afraid anymore, because we know that that some of those things hold the biggest beauty as well. So, and when we own that, I mean, asking the tough questions or mentioning things, even though they're not popular, it's not as scary anymore, is it?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think other people realize suddenly that our shadows are not a bad thing. You know, I think a lot of us, we think, oh my God, you know, these parts of me, I can't show that to the world because, you know, other people will judge me about that. Or, you know, if I feel that, other people will, you know, they will put me in a box and they think, oh my God, like, who is she? You know, so I was always so afraid to speak openly about my emotions because I'm a really, really emotional person. And I think a lot of highly sensitive women are. And you know, for me, it's like, you know, the whole world can crumble apart. And, you know, things just really affect me. And I take things really personal, you know, but I feel things really deeply as well. And I think once I actually started sharing about, you know, how I really feel, even in a partnership, and, you know, being okay to be vulnerable in that moment and to be rejected was actually one of my greatest lessons, and also one of the biggest gifts ever, because I allowed myself to be seen in that moment. I think a lot of times we're not allowing ourselves to be seen, you know, and if we don't allow others to see us, how can they know us really?
Exactly. And the funny thing is that instead of actually being put in that box that we fear when we express ourselves, there's so much freedom, because by being who we are, as you say, that gives other people something to meet. If we're sort of invisible or jellyfish, there's nothing to meet or connect with. So when we show up, that gives other people this something to resonate with, something to meet. And then when we show that it's okay to not be okay necessarily, that's freedom instead, I find.
That is really, that is true freedom. That's like sovereignty. You're kind of yourself, you're freeing your own soul, you know, from all this burden you put yourself on because you thought, oh, you know, you got to be a hard worker, or you know, you just have to push through. But no,
there is another way.
Exactly.
And that's I love that. I really love this story. So if there's anybody listening who wants to know more about how you work, where do they find you? How do they reach you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Renate Sophia Mueller. It's pretty easy.
I'll put links in the notes as well.
Yes, there's like a Linktree link. There are all my links. I'm actually putting on a new website at the moment. So this is kind of on work at the moment, but you can always find me on Instagram and Facebook. And I will give you all the links.
Yes, we'll make sure to put them in the notes. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. I so enjoyed your energy and your thoughts and your journey through all this. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Trine. Thank you so much for this space and for welcoming me in this space. And thanks for letting me be seen, also from you, but also from others. And thank you so much.
Well, you are so very welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll speak to you again some other time. So take care. Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Now I need to figure out where to